When is a tent just a tent, and when is it a vehicle for freedom of speech? In our fourth story on the countdown, a judge upholds Mayor Bloomberg's decision to rid Zuccotti Park of Occupy protesters after officials ignore orders from another judge to allow occupiers back into their camp. Late this afternoon, New York State Supreme Court Justice Michael Stallman, yes, he picked that picture, denied the protesters' emergency appeal to return to the park, ruling that protesters have not demonstrated that they have a First Amendment right to remain in Zuccotti Park. Lawyers for the protesters say their First Amendment rights have indeed been violated, and their fight will not end here. Joining me now, one of those fighting on behalf of the protesters, Yetta Kurland, attorney with the National Lawyers Guild. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Okay, you got a TRO at the crack of dawn this morning, letting the protesters back in with tents, with sleeping bags, with their possessions, and the mayor just ignored it. He claimed it needed clarification. In legal terms, what the hell was that?
Very good question. We got the order signed at about 6:30 this morning. We served it on not only the city, the NYPD, but also Brookfield Properties by 7:50 a.m. And still by 10 a.m., we were not being allowed to bring folks back into the park. And we went, in fact, down to Zuccotti Park and tried to serve it on a number of police officers who literally walked away from us and refused to accept service of a court order by a New York State Supreme Court judge.
Did the city then go judge shopping, or did they lean on somebody? And what is the next legal step in terms of this unfortunate judge who said, well, yeah, it is a little unfortunate that you guys changed the rules on them in the middle of the game, but that really doesn't affect the larger issue of whether or not they get to bring camping gear in?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what happened behind closed doors. I do know that it has been a long day with a lot of ups and downs. We were certainly very delighted to get the order this morning by Judge Billings, clearly directing the city to recognize the First Amendment rights of the protesters, to allow them back into the city, into the park, excuse me, along with their belongings. The decision this afternoon was certainly disheartening, and frankly, you know, listen, some decisions are good decisions, some decisions are bad decisions. In my opinion, the decision by Judge Stallman was not a good decision. I'm not sure he understood the finer nuances of the argument regarding First Amendment issues and seemed to kind of skip a track and get preoccupied with this claim by the city that their conduct was mostly because of public safety issues.
Sometime after this all began on the 17th of September, Brookfield Properties issued new guidelines that prohibited, among other things, camping and or the erection of tents or other structures, the placement of tarps or sleeping bags or other covering on the property. Those were not in the restrictions of the use of that public space that's been public space since at least the opening of the World Trade Center 40 years ago. Did the judge this afternoon essentially say they can change those rules, they can retroactively input those rules, no matter what effects they might have on freedom of speech or anybody else's constitutional rights? Is that what he ruled?
You know, it's a confusing decision. He first said it's undisputed that it is a traditional public space,
right.
But then went on to say that, in fact, they couldn't bring tents and structures onto the premises. And again, I'm not sure that he understood the arguments, and I'm not sure that he understood the broader arching issue of what it means to occupy, and that kind of the 21st century is moving into a new type of social movement.
I quoted Police Commissioner Kelly from a broadcast about 2 hours ago, maybe only about an hour and a half ago now, who said that there would be Brookfield employees, presumably guards, at 4 entrances to Zuccotti Park who would check everybody, and they've already done this, check people's bags, check people's persons. You'll notice Police Commissioner Kelly is not being checked for anything there. He's just standing around gloating over what happened. But they're going to search people going into a public space. I'm confused, and I don't think it's just because I didn't go to law school. I'm confused by that idea.
Very confusing. And who's giving them what directions? What happens to tourists who happen to have backpacks? Again, we're talking about selective enforcement and some very concerning issues in terms of enforcement of that. So we'll see what happens. You know, as our clients often say, you cannot evict an idea. And I think that, you know, although we were disappointed by the decision by Stallman, there's a lot of options moving forward. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's great to hear the support from the occupiers for the work of the National Lawyers Guild, but in fact we feel very privileged and very honored to be able to represent these folks who are working in Occupy Wall Street.
The final number may vary on this. There's at least 4, probably 6, maybe more journalists, Associated Press, New York Daily News, New York Times, all of them, somebody was arrested from each organization this morning while covering the protests with valid press credentials. The mayor claimed the actions against the media were to protect members of the press. Have we just seen sort of the ultimate violation of freedom of the press. He arrested reporters in the middle of what he believed was illegal action on his part as mayor.
Yeah, and then said that he did it to make the journalists safe.
Right.
I mean, another issue is that, as you reported earlier, Jonas Rodriguez, a New York City council member, where's the mayor saying that he's upset that his own council member has been arrested wrongfully and bloodied in that process? So it really calls into question what the motivations are here. But again, you know, there were some setbacks today, but I think that it is unquestionable that this movement will continue and that folks aren't going away. And again, the thing that I've said at every time I've done this show is that we have repeatedly offered the city to sit down if there really are any types of public health concerns, any other types of concerns. We've always been available to address those issues, but appearing at 1 in the morning with mass evictions, reports that I was hearing of bulldozers with their blades down, going down Broadway with 35 riot gear cops. This is not the way to do that.
You'll get a lot of things perhaps in the courts relative to Michael Bloomberg, but there are two things you will not get if he doesn't want them: a meeting and an apology. Yetta Kurland of the National Lawyers Guild, one of the volunteers for the Occupy Wall Street movement. Thanks again, Yetta.
Thank you.
Albany, Oakland, Portland, New York, and others, and Philadelphia and other cities threatened. Detect a pattern here in the last week? Michael Moore does, especially with the president conveniently on his way to Australia. Michael, and then my special comment.